I'm literally bombarded by giveaways. Now, are they all just a bit of fun? These raffles are being played by people that are just desperate. So many operating that some of them must be scams. I found some interesting stuff online about this subject. Whenever I'm scrolling through social media nowadays, I'm literally bombarded by tons of posts from various companies promoting giveaways where apparently I can win my dream car for pennies. Now, are they all just a bit of fun and a great way for us petrol heads to get our dream car? Or are they all scams? Now, if you haven't already, please do click like on this video now because it's a massive help to me and my channel. Alternatively, if you're new to the channel, click subscribe now and welcome. I'm Marcus Hayes, and today I'm going to tell you what I think about all these car giveaway competitions. I'm sure you guys have all seen these competition posts yourselves. I've seen companies giving away supercars, luxury and prestige cars, big spec modified cars, and I've actually seen a load where companies are doing giveaways for classic Fords as well. I've seen some competitions where you can win 3 cars at once. There's similar competitions like these where you can win a house. I've even seen examples where you win a house and a car in the same competition. The videos that are posted to promote these competitions usually show your favourite influencer giving you a walk round of a really cool car, and sometimes they'll jump in the driver's seat, take the car for a spin to give you a demo. They'll go on about how much the car is worth, and with the case of modified cars, they'll run through the spec list, talk you through all the modifications, and bang on about how much money the previous owner of the car has invested in the build. Sometimes you just can't help but start dreaming and imagining winning and driving your dream car from one of these competitions. But for me personally, all these competitions just jump out as being utter scams. I've actually been asked multiple times to get involved with these car raffles and car competitions, and I'm just always not interested. I don't like how a lot of these competitions and stuff seem to spring up more when we're going through economically difficult times, right? As we are dealing with more and more cost of life crises, yeah, it just seems like more of these companies are popping up. In the same way that gambling sites and gambling apps pop up more when people are going through hard economic times. And to me, it's all just to take advantage of people that are desperate, and that's why I don't want to get involved in anything like that myself. And the way I see it, there are just so many of these giveaway companies giving away all these really cool cars for pennies, essentially, when you consider the cost of each ticket, that I just think there's so many of them that at least some of them must be dodgy. And a lot of the ticket prices and disclosed ticket amounts that they're selling for these competitions, yeah, they just vary so much, and it's inevitable that the cheaper ones are obviously competitions where the odds are just ridiculously small. So the more desperate you are, the more likely you're going to enter the ridiculously cheap competitions, and ultimately the less likely you're going to win. Now, with a lot of these competitions, there's always a cash alternative prize if you don't want to take the car if you win. And it seems like a lot of people do end up taking the cash alternative instead of the car. But often the cash alternative seems to be a lot lower than what the car is worth, or what they tell you the car is worth when they're promoting the competition. So this might mean that people win the car, and once they actually see the car, they then realise that it's not as great as it was perceived to be, and then they just decide to take the cash alternative even though it is lower than the car should be worth. But the fact that people do take the cash alternative often could be a sign to the fact that these raffles are being played by people that are just desperate for money, right? Sometimes these people aren't even in a position to take the car even if they wanted to. They just take the cash alternative because they're desperate for money. If they're desperate for money, then they shouldn't be playing these competitions, in my opinion, and it kind of proves, if that is true, that they are sort of designed to take advantage of people that are desperate. Now, the fact that people do seem to be taking the cash alternative quite often, to me, could be a potential sign to the fact that these competitions are scams and that there was never actually a genuine winner. And even if there was a winner that took the cash alternative, maybe this is their bribe, essentially, for playing along with this utter scam. Because unfortunately, we live in a world nowadays where there are many people out there that are quite willing to ignore their conscience if it means they're able to pocket thousands of pounds. So, for example, if the car that they're giving away in one of these competitions is supposedly worth £50,000 and they end up selling £70,000 worth of tickets, they've potentially made 20 grand there for the competition company. But if the winner takes the cash alternative, which is often less than the car is worth, so say they take £30,000, then that's still another £20,000 for the raffle company, and they still have the car. Maybe I'm a cynic, but that was just an example that was going around my head how this could be potentially an utter scam. Now, I think it's fair to say that there's probably millions of people in England alone that would be willing to participate in a scam like this for £30,000. And ultimately, who would know if the winner is adamant that they played the game and won fair and square and took the £30,000 cash alternative? Then, who's going to prove that it wasn't done in a fraudulent way? Now, one thing I have noticed is that sometimes the same cars end up on multiple different raffle competitions. Now, this could just mean that people are winning the cars and then selling the cars to other competition companies. But what it could mean is that when you're entering one of these competitions, you're kind of entering a raffle within a raffle. I know with radio stations, for instance, when you enter some of these competitions, especially the big money prize competitions, you're actually entering a competition that is shared amongst all their sister radio stations. So maybe that's the same with these giveaway competitions. Maybe that's why there are so many of these companies popping up, because they're all just sister companies of each other. And that might be why you're seeing the same cars being given away by multiple companies. Who knows? I suppose the only way to really know would be to deep dive into the terms and conditions of these competitions, but realistically, who ever reads any terms and conditions for anything? Now, I did do a quick Google search and I found some interesting stuff online about this subject. So, first of all, from a forum, and I think this is an Australian forum because it's .au at the end of the URL, but it mentions that these companies might be using a loophole in the lottery system to enable these raffles that aren't raffles through what's known as a trade promotion. So when you sign up for tickets, you aren't actually buying tickets to the giveaway, you buy access to their membership and are given an equivalent amount of tickets for signing up. And apparently this is the same as the McDonald's Monopoly game. If any of you guys eat at McDonald's, you'll know that once a year they do a Monopoly thing where you get little tickets on your food and you can win cash prizes and cars and whatnot, and smaller prizes like free food, etc. And what this forum post was saying that you're essentially buying food to get a token for the Monopoly game, and essentially the food you're buying is your membership and you get your tickets free. They're given to you. You're not actually buying tickets. So it's technically not a raffle, because apparently only registered charities are allowed to run raffles this way, and it means that they're able to sidestep any laws to do with raffles. And it mentions in this forum that the McDonald's Monopoly thing did actually turn out to be a massive scam years ago. I remember watching a TV programme about that. So, yeah, that's just an example of an utter scam as well. Now, on that same thread, but further down, there was an entry that's very interesting from someone that said that they used to work for a marketing company back in the 90s and they ran a lot of promo raffles and competitions at the time. Without exception, the winners were hand-picked by our clients' company managers. State government cracked down on raffles as gambling in the early 2000s, which didn't eliminate the risk of shenanigans but made raffles more expensive and difficult to administer, so the client moved on to other dodges. Now, on another website, this is drive.com, I found an example where apparently a Nissan Silvia was given away in a raffle, and the winner drawn was actually the partner of the vehicle's original owner. Making matters worse, the raffle company didn't disclose this information to its members when the raffle was drawn. They later issued a statement saying that the winner is chosen at random, and we had a draw go in an unforeseen way. The winner of the S13 was the partner of the person that sold it to us. And it says that the contract is that the seller cannot enter the giveaway. Unfortunately, this didn't mention immediate family and or partners, and this will be added for future giveaways. So I'm guessing that, terms and conditions and laws and whatnot would have been changed following that. But yeah, it's pretty sus, isn't it? Someone wins a raffle for a car and they happen to be the partner of the person that sold that car to the raffle company. But yeah, you might be thinking, how can these companies get away with this if they are scams? There's simply too many of them operating for them to be scams, you could say, right? Whereas I kind of think there's so many operating that some of them must be scams. Surely there's some laws that protect us from this sort of thing. Well, it seems like these companies are able to operate because they're not technically classed as gambling. So there's some technicalities that might actually be the only reason that these companies are operating. And as a result, they fall out of the laws of gambling, right? So I've got this from www.gamblingcommission.gov.uk, and it says many people running raffles on high value items such as houses and cars do so by running free draws or prize competitions. You notice how they're always called giveaways. They're never called lottos or raffles. They're always called giveaways or competitions. These are not forms of gambling, and as a result, we do not regulate them. They're not regulated by the Gambling Commission. You cannot run a lottery if the money after expenses and prizes costs is not going to a good cause, to a charity. For example, the National Lottery, they give millions and millions and millions of pounds to charity. That's why they're allowed to be a lottery, right? So, these giveaway competitions, they can't call them a lottery, because if they were to do that, they would have to give all proceeds after expenses and prize costs to charity. And the organiser or promoter of a lottery must also be a non-commercial society. You could run the competition as a free prize draw or prize competition because the Gambling Commission do not regulate those and they don't provide advice on how they should be organised. So, by calling these competitions a giveaway or a competition, they actually sidestep any gambling laws. Although, in my opinion, they are gambling, right? You're risking your money and you may or may not win the car. Now, I found this other information from www.chase.co.uk, which kind of gives the definitions of lotteries, raffles, and competitions. So lotteries, it says, are regulated under the Gambling Act, and lotteries are when someone pays to enter and prizes are awarded based on chance. And to me, that's what these car giveaways are, right? Someone pays to enter and the prizes are awarded based on chance. So they tell us, right? It's randomly chosen. But they don't call them lotteries because lotteries are governed by the Gambling Commission. Now, raffles, these are still lotteries, but they're meant to be run at non-profit events. Tickets are sold at the event and winners are announced there too. However, unlike an explicit lottery, no licence is required to carry them out, and they're unregulated by the Gambling Act. So raffles are also not regulated by the Gambling Act, but a raffle is technically only a raffle if they are run at non-profit events and if the tickets are sold at the same event that the winners are announced at. So these car competitions can't call themselves raffles. Now, competitions, this is where things change slightly. A lotto or a raffle becomes a competition and won't be regulated by the Gambling Commission if an element of skill is included in the entry process. It can be as simple as asking people, what colour is the sun? All correct answers are put into a draw and the winner is selected. And this is definitely something that I've noticed with these car giveaways. They will all have a question that nobody's going to get wrong, right? There'll be a competition to give away a Mark II Escort. And the question will be, what company built the Escort? And it will be multiple choice. And one of those answers will be Ford. And pretty much anyone, it should be every single person that enters a competition to win a Mark II Ford Escort should be able to identify that a Mark II Ford Escort was built by Ford. So the question is just to make them legally call it a competition, which means they're not going to be regulated by the Gambling Act. So yeah, all this just makes me very suspicious about these car giveaways. Technically, they're making sure they're not scams by calling them competitions, but it's just a way of avoiding being governed by the Gambling Act, because maybe if they were governed by the Gambling Act, then people would be looking more into how these things are run, and then maybe they would be sussed out as being scams. By calling themselves competitions, then they're not going to be governed by the Gambling Act, and no one's going to bother looking into them to see if they are scams or not. Well, that's what I think anyway. So, things to remember if you're planning to play one of these giveaways, right? The most important thing to remember, in my opinion, is that famous saying, if it seems too good to be true, then it probably is. If someone's telling you that you can win a £300,000 Lambo for 19p, that seems a bit too good to be true, doesn't it? So it probably is. But I would say, if you are going to play one of these giveaways, read all the terms and conditions. If you're not willing to sit there and read through all the terms and conditions, then maybe you shouldn't be willing to play these giveaway competitions. Now, the terms and conditions are always going to be really long and really extensive, if they even have them on their website. But terms and conditions are always really long and extensive. Maybe they're that way on purpose so that people don't read them. Who knows? I know that I very rarely ever read terms and conditions for anything. Even when it comes to things like car insurance, even though I admit that I should. And scammers know that 99.99999% of people never read terms and conditions. But even if you do read terms and conditions, you need to accept that in this internet age, it's quite easy to copy and paste some terms and conditions from somewhere else and put them onto your website to make it look more legit. And you need to accept that even if a company does have terms and conditions, and even if you had read through them all and they all seem legit, there will be companies out there that are still scams, even if they do have legit terms and conditions. Just because there's terms and conditions on their website doesn't necessarily mean that that's how they're actually running their competitions. I think it's obvious to say that you should only play with the money that you can afford, in the same way that you should be if you are gambling. But I think it's also worth remembering that these cars that they're giving away probably aren't the best of the best of the best examples of these cars, even though, obviously, when they're promoting them, they're gonna go on as if they are. Realistically, best of the best of the best cars wouldn't need to be on a giveaway site. They would just be sold in a private sale, in my opinion. Another thing worth noting is that you should basically accept that any maximum ticket numbers that they disclose is potentially going to be false. How would you know if they'd sold more tickets than they tell you they have? I've certainly seen examples where the ticket number was way higher than the amount of tickets that they said they sold for one of these competitions. And that particular influencer just said that all the tickets they sell don't run in sequence. They're all just random numbers, which I find at least a little bit suspicious. Why wouldn't you just have, ticket numbers 1 to 2,000 if you're selling 2,000 tickets? In my mind, you would do that to sort of confirm that the competition isn't a scam. Why would you have random numbers that don't run in sequence on a competition that apparently has a limited amount of tickets? I think if you're going to play one of these raffles, you need to at least accept that it might be possible that you might be playing a raffle that is basically a load of raffles from various sister companies. So even if the company that you are playing the giveaway with says there's only 2,000 tickets and they are only selling 2,000 tickets, maybe they are just part of a group of companies that are all selling 2,000 tickets each, where ultimately your odds are going to be less than 1 in 2,000. And one thing you should definitely consider is that nowadays all companies that you interact with are collecting your data, even the legitimate ones, right? So if you're entering one of these competitions, you've likely given them your name, you've likely given them your address, your email address, you've likely given them your bank details if you're paying for your ticket with your credit card or your debit card. And a lot of companies out there, legitimate or fraudulent, will sell your data to other companies, and then you just don't know how your data is being used ultimately. Maybe your data is just going to be used to send you a load of emails for promotions of other products and other services, at the very least, but you don't know what else is going to be done with your data. And ultimately, if you accept that at least some of these competition companies are scams, then you've got to accept that potentially your data is going to be used in a fraudulent way as well. So my closing thoughts on this whole subject. In my opinion, these car giveaways are gambling, even if they technically don't fall into the right category so that the Gambling Commission is involved in regulating them. And I'm personally not a gambler, so I have no plans of getting involved with these competitions on either side of the fence. As I've already mentioned, I've been offered to promote these sort of things. I've been offered to be the face of these competitions by a couple of companies. They want to use my YouTube channel to promote them and use my reputation as someone on YouTube that is very transparent and honest, as a way of making their competitions come across as transparent and honest. And I'm just not interested in getting involved with these competitions in that way, or in a way of playing them. I just see it as gambling. And in fact, a couple of times I've been offered quite big money to promote gambling apps and stuff like that on my YouTube channel. And yeah, I'm just not interested in any of it. I don't think it's right for me to promote something that I'm not into myself, because, then you're sort of being enthusiastic about something as if you are into it when you're not. And that's just clearly fake and pretentious, and that's not what I'm all about. Having said that, I've got nothing against people that do gamble. It's up to people individually to decide whether they do gamble or not. But my sort of thoughts on gambling is, if I'm going to get anything in terms of monetary gain in my life, I want to have earned it. I don't want it to just be luck, because I don't think that's really going to help turn you into a better person, or into the kind of person that deserves monetary gain in their life, if you only ever get it through chance, essentially. I think it's inevitable with so many of these competition companies springing up that at least some of them are scams. So if I was to decide to play one, I'd have to go through the hassle of deciding which ones are scams and which ones aren't before I even bothered buying a ticket. And I think most people out there, I'm afraid to say, are more persuaded to play these competitions by how cheap the tickets are and how great the prizes are, rather than focusing on how legitimate the company that's promoting them is. And I think this is a huge mistake. It's inevitable that the ones where the tickets are really, really, really cheap, the odds are just really, really, really small. And then, the ones where the tickets are more expensive, then, maybe you've got a better chance of winning, but ultimately you're losing more if you lose, right? But really and truly, you don't know which ones are legitimate and which ones aren't. So yeah, I'm not saying that any of these competitions are scams. I'm not saying that any of them aren't scams. You know, I kind of don't need to decide whether they are or aren't scams because I've decided to not get involved in them. But, you know, this video was just me giving my thoughts about how they could potentially be scams. But I want to hear from you guys about what you think about all these competitions that are springing up everywhere. Have you ever entered one of these competitions? Have any of you guys actually won? And was the prize any good? Or did you take the cash alternative instead? Have any of you guys out there sold a car to any of these competition companies? And what are your opinions about the companies that run these competitions? Are they legitimate or are they all utter scams? Let me know in the comments what you think. But with that, I'm going to end this video here. Huge thanks as always to everyone who's tuned in. If you thought it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, feel free to give it a thumbs down. Check the links in the description to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. My email address is down there for anyone who wants to contact me, as well as a link to my own website and the Petrolhead Style website. Definitely go and check out both of those websites. Huge thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.